Hi there, happy 2023. It's Dr. JOYLYN Sparkles and welcome to your Power Hour. This is your time to put what's on your mind on my mind, and we'll put our heads and our hearts together and we will find a way to go from stuck to happy as fuck in a short amount of time as possible. Why? Because you've been dealing with this shit long enough, okay? And wasting no time on fluff or bullshit, because that ain't my style. And we've got too much to do, okay? So 2023, kicking it off, blasting off, talking about how to realize with greater ease, okay? It's New Year's. So you've got goals, right? A resolution maybe, even though if you saw my email, resolutions are out, rhymes are in. That's my thing. I love rhymes. But chances are, if you are like most of us, sorry, I'm just looking at my computer. You've probably set a resolution or an intention and maybe be working on it again still for the umpteenth time, or somehow ending up where you start, just not making the progress that you'd like, or wondering why it feels like you're pushing water up a hill and just getting all wet. Okay, so how do you actually change that so you can have some ease in this? And granted, I am not the person who's going to talk about manifesting a whole lot. But what I will talk about is how to connect with yourself and use this deeper connection with yourself, what I call self-love. That's how to actually get sustainable change. So what I'm talking about today is power, self-love, aligning with yourself, with the divine, with truth. That's where true power is, versus force. And the choice of which to use and how to use them is going to make a world of difference in how you talk to yourself, in the amount of motivation that you have, and how much ass kicking you require in order to get something done. So how much ease is it going to take to have something new show up in your life, so at the end of 2023, we're not working on the same shit, okay? Because you've actually made sustainable change, meaning you can be here and move forward. You're not going to be who you were, okay? So when it comes to that, let me see what I got here. Okay. Power versus force. We're talking, do you want to go slow or do you want to be in flow? Are you going to push things along, or are you going to pull energy and magnetize and attract things to you? Okay, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about power versus force. So force, and when you hear me say force, you can probably also think control, because they're kind of like twins. They go together. That is what is required. A lot of force, a lot of control, a lot of manipulating and trying to get things in just the right order. Thinking. Lots of extraneous, external. It's going to require a lot of energy, okay? And that is what's required when you're out of line with divine, okay? See, I love rhymes. Now, where that's coming from is a lack of trust in the divine itself, which means you're going to have a lack of trust in you and your worthiness, your ability to do things, to call things in, your ability to request and be heard, be seen, be supported. A lack of trust in the process, that it's actually going to work, that it's going to work for you, that it is working, that you're not fucking it up. All of these things are going to come up, and a lot of them, these trust issues, a lot of them where the break came is a trauma patterning, which is very unfortunate and possibly tragic depending on the story that it happened. Well, it is tragic because it means we disconnected from ourselves and from source, but it's healable. It is changeable, okay? It's workable here. Because it's also become a habit. It's how we've started to know ourselves as either an unlucky person, somebody who needs a lot of ass kicking. I'm just not a trusting person. I don't trust myself. I have a lot of self-doubt. But instead of hearing ourselves and being like, well, that shit ain't working for me, we've actually started to just, that's who I am. And so it's going to require a lot of extra energy just to get over that in order to change anything, okay? So a lack of trust is a big what I call a hole in the boat. It's a big energy leak, okay? So that's something we're gonna have to work on, but it's something that's going to require a lot of extra force in order to overcome, okay? The other one, oh, and when you don't trust other people, like I trust myself, but I don't trust other people, that's not true. Because if you don't trust other people, it's probably because you were modeled or trauma programmed into not trusting because they weren't safe, because your level of safety still resides outside of yourself. So it's still a lack of trust in your own ability to generate and create a sense of stability and safety for yourself, okay? So a lack of trust is always pointing in, here's where we gotta go, here's where safety is, okay? Then you'll need a lot of force. You'll have to use a lot of force. You might have known times when you've had to use a lot of force, when there's a lot of resistance. That's where the slow comes from. Things go slow because that's what resistance does. It slows things down. So where does that resistance come from? A lot of it is coming from when you are trying to realize, manifest, or make true something that isn't true. And a lot of that will be a desire that's not actually true for you. I know for a long time, and going through numerous business coaches, why they weren't working for me was because I could not make a money goal the thing. Like, is money important? Absolutely. But it wasn't until I put, oh yeah, I want money because it helps me relax. I'm just more easygoing when I know it's there. That's part of happiness. Boom, it's in. Now I can work on that. But when I just went into, oh, this much a month is what I need because that's what success is, I failed every time because that just wasn't true for me. Now, whether it's a certain way to look, how your family's supposed to look, or what you're supposed to do for a career, any of those things that we've been trying over and over and over might be because it's not actually what lights us up. It's not actually the most important thing. We actually just kind of borrowed the priority from somebody else and said, oh yeah, that sounds good, and they look like they're happy, so I'll do that too, but it doesn't work. So it's not true for you. Another thing we might have to overcome that isn't true is when we're not acknowledging something that's true in the present, like our feelings. Like when we're pretending that everything's fine, when we're really feeling a raging internal fire of either anger or grief or sadness, disappointment, hurt, abandonment, something like that. We're feeling it, but if we refuse to acknowledge it, it takes a lot of extra effort to keep on going. Now that, again, is a lot of childhood programming. For those of us who grew up in dysfunctional systems, those negative feelings just might not have been allowed because whoever it was that we were wrapping our reality around in order to survive, because we are genius survivalists and we were when we were little, they couldn't handle it. They had too much of their own shit going on. And if you had something like that that required attention, they weren't getting all the attention that they wanted, or whatever the dynamic was, you weren't able to actually express and be shown how to process an intense emotion. Now, for a lot of us, it was negative emotions. We just had to stuff those down. But for some of us, even it might have been good emotions, because then we might have been out of control or obnoxious or something. So that now, too, when we have this exuberance and this joy that we want to, we have to keep stuffing it down and pretending we're like everybody else. That's a form of resistance. We're resisting ourselves and what's true for us. Now, the thing about feelings is there are a lot that we've become addicted to that have become habitual, and we've become conditioned to them. We become conditioned to them because they're actually chemicals in our body. So we actually just have this chemistry that feels familiar. So that's going to add a little bit of getting out of that form of resistance. But again, totally possible. All right. Now, another thing that we might be resisting is an actual level of truth, meaning a lot of us, especially when it comes to New Year's resolutions, move into this utopian ideal of what we're actually able to achieve, or what we can expect from other people magically because things have changed or because we've decided something's going to be different. And we're not acknowledging the truth, meaning we will never, ever, ever be able to control another human being. Actually, we're never even going to be able to control ourselves the way that we think, because we too are human beings, and we have this internal governing system that absolutely refuses to relent and give up its sovereignty and autonomy, to where when it gets stepped on by anyone else or ourselves, we become the teenager or the toddler that actually just throws a fit and says, not going to do it, okay? So we have to acknowledge the truth. We also have to acknowledge the truth that, and here's where I know we're in a three-dimensional reality. There will be a lag time between when you think of something, the idea comes, and when you're actually going to see it. That's why so many of the wisdom generators over the years, as within, so without, the changes are going to be internal and unseen before they are external and visible. We have to acknowledge that, otherwise we become so easy to get distracted, discouraged, and give up. Okay, so watch for that form of resistance. Another form of resistance that we are very attuned and familiar with is fear. And let me tell you right now, fear is, especially when it's this kind, it's a lack of acquaintance with your future. If you have no direction and no familiarity with where you're going, your subconscious has no choice but to go back to old patterning. Because your subconscious itself is not an imaginative vehicle. That is not one of the functionalities that it has. It cannot create something. It can only generate based on what's already happened. It's just recording and looping. And for the subconscious, uncertainty is certain death. So that's where you have to create a direction and a familiarity with your future so that your subconscious has something to start looping and feeding into new material. But you're going to have to do that, okay? So fear is a survival mechanism. And if it's coming up real strong because I don't know who I am anymore, it's because you don't know who you are anymore, but you haven't even looked. You haven't given a lot of thought or pulled in a lot of energy or feeling to actually know who you'd like to be, how you'd like to show up. And this is where even I did it. It was like, I think 2 summers ago or something, I did a power hour about the ultimate asshole deterrent. And a lot of us become assholes. I didn't mean to, but we had no idea what we meant. We didn't actually get in touch with our true intention or agenda. And so when we didn't mean to do something, we often just end up being mean. And that's where a lot of this kind of comes from. It's not meaning to be self-sabotaging, but it ends up coming out that way because there's just no alternative. We have to do a better job of getting in touch with ourselves, with our intention, with our future, so that we can change how things are actually going. Okay, so that is why thus far, perhaps things haven't gone exactly the way we'd like, and they haven't shown up yet, because we've been doing it from a I'll see when I see it, I'll believe it. You know, I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah. Missouri's a show me state. Show me, and then I will. Like this whole nobility of suffering and a nobility of skepticism, if that's the way to do things, and demanding the external show up before the internal, which is out of alignment with truth, and having other people show up for you, any type of proving, a lack of trust in you, whether it's learned or trauma programmed, this disconnection from truth and how the three-dimensional and other people actually operate, any need to prove anything, for it, against it, to yourself, to anybody, and any kind of fear that's coming because you just don't have any idea. This is going to require a lot of extra energy. This is why and where a lot of us have been trying to make a change from, to where it's been using so much force, requiring a lot of manipulation, creating a lot of friction, okay? Because there's so much to overcome just to actually generate the change, okay? Not fun. So the better option, let me take a drink because this is going to be good. Hot start, dry throat. Okay, got it. The better option is getting in touch with you and your power. Your power is coming from being aligned with divine, okay? Get in line with divine. Just put that in, it's a rhyme. It's going to stick, okay? Knowing your truth, what's true for you, and knowing the truth. They are not always the same, because what's true for you may not be true for other people. That's where last week we talked about paradigms. But true of the universe, usually a paradox, so that they both can coexist peacefully, okay? Seemingly opposites, actually both true, all right? So know your truth and the truth. Know who you are, how you want to show up. Be willing to acknowledge what you're actually feeling in the moment. Run things through your body, and I'll get to that. For your body is going to let you know if it's true for you. And then what's true, the truth, you are divine. You are infinite. There is no limitation to what you can do unless you say so. You're the only person that can stop you. So that's the truth. And then being more in tune with the present, what's actually true now, because we know past and future only happen in the now. And when any of those are happening in the now, it's because we brought them in there. So it's really, we've got a lot of power, and I'm going to show you how to get in touch with that. So get in flow. Be in the right place at the right time. Have ease and trust in the process. And here's how you start changing your identity. And then you reinforce that with your priority. So that is to say, like I've said before, you slow down to speed up. You take some time to get in touch with, how do I want to show up? What is it that I'd like to see more of in my life? Not what I want to fix and stop. Okay, what do I want to have more of? What lights me up? What's fun? What makes me feel like I'm me and I'm really alive? Whether or not anybody else is around and witnessing it, okay? That'll be an important distinction. And then when you get in touch with that, make that your priority. That's what you make choices based on. Not how much it costs, not how much time it's going to take, not what time of day of the week it's going to be on. Those things might factor in later, but you put this priority first. It lights me up, I feel alive, it's in. And you do that over and over again instead of letting all this other stuff go in front. Because if you are anything like me, and I think a lot of you are, we're head cases, okay? Because we are super intelligent and our brain processes really fast. So as soon as we get to intuition, this lights me up. There's a, but maybe I should do this first. To, even though it'll wind a story around, to open up this space for this, let me do all this first. That's a back-ass words priority, okay? Because you just put all this stuff in front of the thing you really wanted. Ain't gonna work anymore, okay? It never actually really did. We just thought that it did because it sounded smart, okay? Now it's actually time to prioritize and take action based on that, all right? So, first thing, name your priority. Set your intention. It has a lot of power. This is where willpower actually comes from, is your intent to succeed. All right? Not to stop something. Where do you want to succeed? What do you want to have more of? This is going to give your subconscious direction. Because your subconscious is just like electricity. It's just a lot of power, but it's got nowhere to go. You have to tell it. You set the parameters. How and where are you going to work? And then where the practice comes in, as far as like, oh yeah, you make it sound so easy. It's simple, but it's not always easy. Only because we've been resistant, and it takes repetition. It isn't instantaneous. It isn't a one and done. We have to repeat, because the habit that is currently in place by default of our humanity, like I said, know the truth, the subconscious is built for survival. So it has a proclivity and tendency to notice negative, because negative information has in general, greater weight in terms of survivability. But we know that surviving isn't enough anymore. We didn't just come here to pay bills and die. We didn't just come to fit in. We didn't just come to be like everybody else. We came to be us. And thriving is our fucking birthright, and we're ready to have it now. Because we've gone from whatever it was birth year to possibly 2023 and only maybe getting taste of it. And now, I want that all the time. So it's just going to have to take a lot of intention to what you pay attention to, so that when you notice these negative thoughts or where your subconscious is showing you where you haven't worked, say, okay, show me where I have. Because you haven't made it this far without zero taste of thrival and aliveness. And if you feel like you have, then ask the divine, show me examples of what thriving and joy and delight look like. Now, you're going to see that perhaps in other people's lives first, but it's still because you decided to pay attention to it. So it's not look at what other people can have that I can't have. There's no exclusion there. It's here's what's possible. Because if they can do it, you can do it, because, hey, we're all one substance, right? Neat, isn't it? Okay. Have your subconscious pay attention to where you've succeeded, what success feels like, where you've done it in the past, and what feels good and what lights you up. Okay? Boom. Intention. How do I want to show up? What do I want to have more of in my life? That's step one. All right? This is the how-to part. Number two, like I said, repetition. It's consciously, and it's going to take some effort, especially in the beginning, to pay attention to what you're paying attention to. And you redirect as many times as required, because this is now your priority, and anything else, anything less than that just ain't good enough, okay? And I'm going to see this through because I want it, because it's true for me. It's my heart's desire, and I'm going to give it to me, all right? So you pay attention to what you're paying attention to. If you see you're mindlessly scrolling, call it back. What would be more generative and connecting for me? You see yourself looking in the mirror and listing all the things you don't want. Wait, what do I like about myself? What is something I've always enjoyed about my body? How can I generate some gratitude here? Okay. I've just gone to the fridge and I'm standing there looking for the answers to my life inside this cooling box. I close the door and say, I'm doing it again. Let me go sit. I have a feelings chair. I go sit in my feelings chair and say, hey, let me connect what's actually going on right now, because I've actually just tuned out. And you do that as many times as it takes. Now with this, have a lot of grace, because first your awareness is going to expand and you're going to notice how much you've been doing it that you might not have noticed before. And then you ask your allowance to expand, because there's no need to judge it. And it's not actually that it's gotten worse. It was always that way. You're just noticing it now, okay? Number two, pay attention to the words that you speak, because a lot of us, up until this point, have connected to ourselves and each other on a problems level. So that what we talk about is having a shared problem and either gossiping or venting and bitching and, commiserating about our misery. Instead, or talking to ourselves about ourselves and using the time that we have to scroll to look for a solution to our problem. Okay, now it's start time to speak about who I am now. And my language has actually changed. Even my coach noticed this. I said, that's not who I am anymore. And there was no charge. It wasn't even there was no proving. It was just like, that doesn't fit anymore. And more I'm starting to see that. And instead of losing weight, because here's a big tip, if you lose it, you want to find it. We don't like to lose things. You shed it. You slough it. It's not who you are anymore. It's not interesting. Okay? You're releasing. So pay attention to the words that you use, because they are actually your God-given creative power you create through your speech, because you take things from thought and put them into physical sound. And when you write them down, you actually make them visible as well. This is your creative capacity. Use it consciously, intentionally for you, instead of to create more of what you don't like, which is complaining. Now, there might be times where you do actually just have to unload. That's okay. You will actually notice the energy difference of when you're using it to release versus when it's what you keep building and generating, okay? But also, you might have noticed that at some point when we released, because we talked about it, we felt better because we actually acknowledged the truth and then made it a habit so that now we only talk about what we complain about, okay? See how this can get kind of complicated? Simple, but complicated. Oh, it's fun like that. Okay, that's all right. We're going into step 3. You do it, and you do it, and you do it, and you do it, and you do it. Every time you notice a misstep, you redirect, you redirect, you redirect in line with your priority, in line with the truth, in line with what you really want. And you do it over and over again. This is actually how you heal. It's how you create new neural circuitry. Okay, this is how new synapses are formed. This is actual trauma recovery. There isn't a magic pill that says my trauma is gone. There's lots of modalities that can help lift a lot of stuff away and work a lot faster. Energetics and quantum stuff is amazing. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But it's repetition, because that's actually what made it turn into a habit. The trauma was actually just an opening that made you more receptive, but you repeated it and repeated it and repeated it. That's what made it a habit. Now, you may or may not have this trauma or quantum experience that opens you up to new programming, but even if you do, this is why the quantum things, it's still not a one and done. You have to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it to create a new habit. Here's the other thing. We don't do well with ending old habits because neural circuitry doesn't get stripped or taken away. It gets pruned and resorbed when it's obsolete. When we stop using it as much, that's when the microglia are like, oh, this one's not used very much. We start pruning it, and it becomes deprioritized until it's finally resorbed, if ever. But it's just not the superhighway anymore, okay? It's just a little dirt back road that you might still take every once in a while. You know, it's 5 years down the road. I haven't thought that in 5 years. Well, it's because that dirt road still exists because it was a well-worn pathway, but it's not the superhighway anymore to where you can notice this is bumpy as hell. I'm going to get off this road. Okay, see? It's fun that way, all right? Steps 1, 2, and 3, set your intention. Lather, rinse, repeat as many times as necessary. This is how you heal. And how then do you do that? I've got some fabulous offerings for you because, like I said, it's simple, not always easy. Last week I talked about paradigm shifts, and we're in one right now. The globe, the universe, where DIY, there's going to be parts of this that only you can do because it's your path. But doing it alone, trying to white knuckle this shit, you can. All roads lead to source. But it's going to take a lot longer. Community is the way to go. Mentoring, having guides is the way to go. The feminine aspect of receiving support is the paradigm for faster change. It just so happens that I know a good guide, okay? And this is what I love to do. I love to talk about this shit. And without trying to put anybody else down, I'm also really, really good at it because I do this. So I can tell you about where I've messed up. I can tell you about shortcuts because I tried the long road for a long time, okay? I'm not trying to fix you. I'm not trying to prove that I'm better with you. Actually, I'm a totally selfish asshole that actually just likes to do this. So you coming to me actually lights me up. You know, it's a win-win because then you get all the wealth of my experimentation of blowing off my eyebrows and, playing and experimenting with what doesn't work, just rearranging the variables, having a different name and hair color, but the same dynamic, all of that I can offer to you so that you can go from stuck to happy as fucking a short amount of time as possible, okay? For the beginning of 2023, there's only 2 options. Well, 3. There is, and I'll put a post on it and I'll put a little link, the Pain Free and Calm Summit that I'm an expert on. I'm an expert panelist, and that's going to be starting January 16th, where if you are struggling with any physical pain, there's 24 experts talking about different tips and tools and aspects of that healing journey that you can really benefit from. And every single one of us have offered a free gift to where you get some sort of resource that you can refer back to, that you can actually use so you get this information, okay? So shortcuts that don't cost a lot of money are available. Next, Happiness Brain Training is going to start. We're going to kick everything off Portal Day next Wednesday. So after Power Hour next Wednesday is like a big party, okay? Because Happiness Brain Training is going to start. In Happiness Brain Training, an immense amount of change happens in only 66 days. Because it's built in repetition and actually practicing of setting a priority and a target that's in line with you and your truth, not based on judgment, and the repetition, scientifically based, 66 days, to actually change how you identify yourself and make your choices on. Okay, so that's starting. And that one is super simple, way fun, on Telegram, so easy to incorporate into your day. But the biggie, if you are ready, because you are sick and tired of ending up where you started and dealing with the same old shit over and over and over again. Love yourselves. It's how to nourish your whole human being and love yourself into the change you'd like to see, okay? Whether that's a calmer person, a more peaceful person, a thinner person, a healthier person, because a lot of us, it's incorporating and integrating the mindset into the physical. Because a lot of us are displaying and expressing our mind game and our trauma patterns in our body. Actually, we all are, but some of us are just more aware of it or more ready to change it right now, okay? So if you've been carrying extra weight, mentally, emotionally, and physically, if you've got discomfort and disease, mentally, emotionally, physically, this is the program that's finally going to get things to change. Because whatever you've done before, we're not going to throw it out. We're going to be able to reuse it in a different way and also deal with these really tough things that have been such a source of judgment and pain, and do it in a more playful way. Because when we play, we do open up and change and become more receptive. So instead of it being a traumatic experience that makes us more receptive, we turn it into a play experience and we become more receptive to new patterning. So it speeds it up. We're building intrinsic motivation, so you don't need an ass kicking. You just want to do this because it's based on feeling more alive and what brings more joy. And instead of it just like, oh, we talk about it twice a week, we're going to play with it. We're actually going to do that together. It's experiential. And there is no fucking way you're falling through the cracks, because there is both group and community built in, because we're doing group coaching twice a week and individual coaching every other week, so that you get personal and community group dynamics, all of that together, okay? And as this goes, the Love Yourselves library of content is growing and building to where I'm creating content. You're going to have videos, workbooks. I'm also creating a coloring book for this, okay? Activities that are fun and playful that you're going to be able to have when you need it. And here's the other thing. You can only enroll quarterly, but that means that every quarter you're getting the review on how to set priorities, on reprioritizing things, on shifting your identity and pivoting, so that 4 times a year you're getting that, because we all know, I've heard this shit a million times. How come I'm just hearing it now for the first time? So at least 4 times, and through every season, you're going to get this fundamental introduction material, okay? We're kicking off next week. I've already talked to a couple of the pioneering founding members, all right? And if you decide to be a pioneering member and join in this Q1, you get a pricing option that's actually half of what it's ever going to be. It's never going to get offered this low. And that's not the biggest reason to join. It's really about the transformation that you can have through this. But that's a totally big perk, okay? Because you get it for the whole year. All right. Those are my options for you. There is a lot of information for how to, so watch this video again if you can. Send me questions, #replay, send in your questions, let me know. Invite, share this with anyone you think that would benefit from this material. And also share the invitation for Happiness Brain Training and love yourselves with your friends, with your family, because happy 2023, all right? That is for me. That's what my rhyme is, choosing what's good for me in 2023 so I can soar in 2024, all right? And we're going to work on all those kind of neat little rhymes and weave those in. That's the big part of Happiness Brain Training that I can't wait, is more playfulness. It's what every program has been lacking until now, all right? And it's available to you. And we're 6 minutes after, so thank you so much for joining me for Power Hour. I love you dearly, and I am already looking forward to next week. Happy 2023. Mwah.